And welcome back to the Clear Jets podcast. Here is Ben Blessington and Michael Nania. Well, Michael, another tough Jets loss. Another game where you felt the Jets could have won, perhaps outperformed some expectations around the league, but alas, couldn't come up in the end. The Jets also didn't get too lucky with today's AFC slate of games. They did seemingly dodge a bullet with the Quinnen Williams injury. We'll see what the full report says tomorrow, or by the time you're listening, you might already know. But Michael, it was an up and down day. There's some good to talk about for sure. Definitely some bad to talk about. And, sitting here late on a Sunday night, actually early Monday morning, technically, a little bit of a somber tone around Jets Twitter. But I'll say this, the Jets still have the goal right in front of them. They have to take care of business the next few weeks, but they're in a position now where if they can beat the Lions next week, if they can beat the Jaguars on Thursday Night Football, and they can beat the Seahawks, I think you're talking about a team that does ultimately sneak into the playoffs. So we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about the playoff picture, but I want to get your initial thoughts to today's game against the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a game that either of us expected them to win. I'm pretty sure.
I predicted a
Did
Mike
you
White
change your
game-winning drive.
prediction?
I
You
did
changed
have
your
the Mike
prediction?
White, which wasn't honestly, there was an opportunity for the game-winning drive. It wasn't too
There
crazy,
was.
but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go with the Jets in my prediction. I did not expect them to win this game. And I think collectively, most people kind of were on that side of the fence. We all knew they had definitely a chance to win this game, especially because of they beat them last time. I think they upgraded their talent in a lot of areas since then. But at the same time, the Bills had a lot of upgrades coming into this game. Much different Bills team. Milano was out there, which Mike White was well aware of. Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer. So despite Von Miller being out there, I think having all those guys are the pieces that made the Bills the Bills. They established themselves as this team with those guys as the core before Miller was there, and it's the continuity and the chemistry between that entire three levels of the defense that makes them what they are. And having all those pieces made them a much more dangerous team. So kind of offset some of the Jets additions, but bottom line, like we thought the Jets had a good chance to win this game. They could compete in it, but looking at this portion of the schedule, the opportunity to do damage here in this middle to third quarter portion, it was those two Pats games. It was the Vikings game. That's where they really should have done some damage by splitting with the Bills. I think everyone would have signed up for that prior to the year. And even going into this game, like you knew if you can get a split with the Bills, that's okay. So losing some of those winnable games previously, the two Patriots games and the Vikings game, that's what puts you in this muddy situation here, much more so than this game, I think. But you're still in a position here where this is the portion of the schedule that you look at, that we have been looking at for the past few weeks, and figure this is where they could do some damage. And it would have been much more preferable if they were able to steal one of these games here and put themselves in a more comfortable spot. But if you're a playoff team, I think you do damage with this slate here at the end of the schedule, and you find a way to take control of your own destiny and get in. So we'll talk more about that road ahead. But yeah, in this particular game, I mean, it's good that they fought again. Not a blowout game. They have not had a blowout loss really since the beginning of the year, if you want to even count those as blowout losses. So it's good they went in there and competed. The defense played really, really well, I think, especially considering Quinn Williams was out for half this game. And then just offensively couldn't get it going. So it's good to have another one of those competitive losses to a 10-win team and all that. But, if you want to make the playoffs, moral victories do not count, as we know. So I think they played solid football the last couple of weeks, considering the opponents, but weren't able to steal one of those victories. So now you really got to clean up and take full advantage of some of the softer teams on the schedule. Not that those teams are even soft at this point, because the way they're playing, but much more manageable than I think the last couple of games. So we'll see if they could take the way they played against these two 10-plus win teams and kind of do that against teams that aren't quite as good, and hopefully that turns into some wins. But yeah, there's some good and bad in this game, and we'll dive into all that right now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this really did feel like a division football game. I mean, not just the
Yeah.
Northeast Buffalo weather, but these two teams were trying to kill each other with every hit. And you alluded to some that Mike White took. Obviously, left the stadium in an ambulance. Seems like it was precautionary. He did join the team flight back home. We'll see if there's an update on his ribs. I imagine at the very least he has some bruised ribs. The fact that he came back into the game leads me to believe that he probably didn't break any ribs, but they'll check him for, internal injuries and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, division football, tough game. And if you were to tell me that the Jets are going to lose Corey Davis and Quinnen Williams for the majority of this game, both of whom made plays early. I mean, Quinnen especially looked like he was in store for a big game, and that they would lose Mike White for a few series, including where the Jets couldn't do anything with Flacco, and including a Flacco fumble. And that the Jets would have a chance to win it in the end, and Carter fumbles it, and that they still drive back down. I mean, like you said, there's some good. This team clearly has a lot of fight in them. They don't quit, and they did battle through some adversity. But if some things broke their way, if Quinnen stayed healthy, if Corey Davis stays healthy, maybe the Jets to walk out of here with a win. But it did feel like it would be a tough ask to sweep Buffalo. I did like Coach Saleh's message after the game, though, which was, we'll see these guys again. And maybe that won't be true. Maybe it will be. But I'll tell you this, if the Jets are going to make any sort of playoff run, they're going to have to go into Buffalo again. And they're going to have to play this team again. And at the very least, you saw today that the Jets can certainly go into that environment and beat Buffalo. These two teams didn't look like they were playing a completely different sport, which has been the case. I know this is not news at this point for this team, but go back to last year against the Bills or the year before that. I mean, obviously we've already known this, so it's maybe a bit repetitive, but these aren't the same old Jets. They can beat anybody. And 2 back-to-back close losses against 2 10-win teams on the road, it's not the worst thing in the world. The Jets could have helped themselves out with some other wins this season, but all things considered, the way Mike White looked and the fact that Quinnen's injury doesn't seem to be a season ender, I'm not maybe as bummed. Surprise. I'm already in the coping part of the process of post game, but it's not like we should be doing a celebration.
I agree. And I know we kind of had the same narrative last game and they couldn't really translate it here, but I think that is an important thing to keep in mind. And you're trying to make the playoffs, and look, we don't need to tell you that it sucks when you're trying to make the playoffs and you're not winning games. But I think at the same time, when you look at, a team outlook standpoint and you look at the last 2 games and, you pretty much dominate the Vikings, but you just couldn't finish in the red zone. And then you go into Buffalo and you deal with all those big injuries that happened in the middle of the game. And you still play them to the end and you outgain them and you come within 1 score and really just, a couple fumbles away from this being a very competitive game. If not one you win. And it's exciting going forward if you can sneak into the playoffs. Obviously, at some point you have to actually win the games and get into the playoffs. But if they are able to do that, you can look back on all these games and what they put together and just realize they're going to be in every single game until the end. And that's how you compete in the playoffs. And if you're a team that makes every single game competitive and close at the end, you're always going to have a chance because, some teams aren't quite like that and they get blown out occasionally. Look at the Vikings, for example. And, not to say I wouldn't rather be in their position because they have 10 wins. The Jets have 7, but that's a team that's been blown out 3 times now this season, pretty much. And when you're kind of susceptible to getting blown out, you never know what team's going to show up, and you just might walk onto the field in the playoffs, not have your best day, and have no shot of doing anything. But this Jets team, every single game, regardless of who they played, they have been ready to play, and they've made it a game until the end. And every single one of their games that they've lost this year, I think you could just look at a couple plays and you flip those results, big turning point plays like turnovers, stuff like that, and you could very much see them winning. So that is the positive side of this. I think that's the way you look at it. But obviously now you have to actually make that count by taking care of business and winning the games you need to win to actually get in. But I think you look at these last 2 games, and would have been great to have one of them. But in regards to what it says about how dangerous the Jets could be if they do sneak into the playoffs, I think it's still quite positive. You now look at 2 Bills games; they gave up 37 points between the 2 of them. And this game, even though the Bills had 20 points on the board, I mean, how many drives were in this game because of how little the Jets were doing? The Bills had a ton of possessions in this game, so the 20 points they got is actually, less than that considering how many times
they got
the ball.
spotted. And they got spotted with the Mosley penalty and the Flacco fumble.
Yeah, and they got good field position from those, so it really is more impressive than 20 points might look. As good as that already is, considering the opponent. So yeah, I mean, again, no one wants to hear all this positivity when we're trying to make the playoffs, but I think it's important
Hey,
to
come
keep that in
on.
mind because there are levels to losing. Like getting blown out is not good. Like you wouldn't rather lose 20-0 or anything like that. I think whenever you lose, you're trying to take as much out of it as possible. Because that's the thing about football. There's so few games in the season that every game is a huge opportunity to learn something about what the team is. Because you never really have a great idea because of that small sample of an NFL season. And especially when it's a team like the Jets that are in a transitional stage, in their rebuild. They're not established. We don't know for real if they're good. So every game they have like this, regardless of the fact that, they couldn't win it, which obviously matters. I think the fact that they are, playing toe to toe with these great teams gives you confidence going forward. So, got to start converting it into more wins. But I think there's still a lot positive to take away. But we will throw the criticism where it's due. We are definitely going to get into that with this one.
Yeah, I would say this. Playoffs start now for the Jets.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just how you have to look at this. And the thing that I think you can take some comfort in is, the Jets lose the ability to drop one of these easy games, and you shouldn't even call them easy games. I mean, look, the Lions just beat the Vikings. They've won 5 of the last 6. They're going to come into MetLife all amped up next week. And the Jaguars have been sneaky. They just beat the Titans today. And the Seahawks have been a problem, the entire season. So none of these games are quote unquote easy, but they're games the Jets should win. And if the Jets could have done some damage in this middle part of the schedule, you mentioned the 2 New England games and obviously the last 2, they would have bought themselves the leeway to potentially, drop a dumb game. But the way I view it now is with their backs against the wall, if they drop a dumb game here, they probably weren't going to make the playoffs or probably weren't going to make a playoff run anyway.
Right.
If this
Yeah.
team is the Cinderella story that we think it could be, and the fact that they, if they can sneak into the tournament, they can play with anybody. We've already learned that. But if they can take care of business these next few weeks, that they can do that. But if they lose one of these games, yes, they probably won't make the playoffs. But even if they did, I think the confidence I'd have in them to not, to really make a run and not just, lose in the first round or maybe win a game and lose in the second round is a lot higher. So it's like playoff start, and the Jets just have to take care of business. This game next week is a must win. Probably the next 3 are must wins. I know people are a little upset about the Dolphins losing. It would have made things a little cleaner if the Chargers could have also lost, and we'll see what happens to the Patriots tonight. But we pointed this out of the pregame pod. Dolphins play the Bills next week. If they lose that game, it's assuming the Jets take care of business the next 3 weeks, they'll have an opportunity for at least a win and in game against the Dolphins at the end of the year. And, they've already beat the Dolphins. I think you like how they match up. I know they're obviously scary, but it all starts next Sunday against the Lions. But now it kind of feels like, all right, it's playoff time. We wanted this. We wanted December competitive football with the Jets, hanging around, with the chance to punch their ticket into the tournament. And they have that opportunity. So, yeah, I guess we can hop into this game. I know you were like, let's talk about some of the negatives. Let's get there. But I want to start with Mike White because I think in terms of in-game storylines, he's the biggest one.
Yeah.
And I'm spacing on what was the name of the Karate Kid that Tony Romo said when Daniel LaRusso? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I thought that was such a funny line.
Good line. That's a good line.
Daniel LaRusso is gonna fight. Yeah, I mean
I love that.
Tony Romo's great. There's not a lot. I know people have mixed opinions on Tony Romo. I love him. I think watching him break down good Jets quarterback play on a Sunday afternoon is about as good as it gets. But obviously, what a gritty, tough performance from Mike White. I've seen some people criticizing him for losing, and the fact that the Jets were 5-2 is Zach. Those people don't know what they're talking about. Mike White's now put together 3 borderline great quarterback performances in a row. This was tough conditions. His O-line was getting him killed every snap, and he was a guy who's hanging in the pocket, hanging tough, and delivering strike after strike. He really didn't have many bad plays. I think he took some sacks maybe that you wish he didn't, and then he had the last 4th down got batted down, but he took care of the football. The last time he played this team, he threw 4 interceptions. That wasn't the case, and he certainly, I don't want to say he did enough to win because he didn't, but he could have won with the way he was playing. You know what I mean? Like he didn't lose him. He didn't lose this game for them is, I guess, the best way of putting it. So what did you make of Mike White's performance?
Yeah, I was impressed yet again. And this was going to be the big test for him. Like we said, going in, we called it the prove it game. And for all intents and purposes, I really think he did prove it in the sense that, he like you said, this is the same team he threw 4 picks against last year. Now he's playing them on the road in the elements, with playoff pressure, and he goes in there. And I think within what he could control, I think he was really good again. And, everyone's going to come out here with the box score stats. So, how many yards?
Box score stats aren't even that bad, but it's like
just like, the 0 touchdowns, like they had 10 points. What's his passer rating? He's 1 and 2, like all this nonsensical surface level stuff that means absolutely nothing. But if you actually watch the game with your eyeballs, then you could see, like, I mean, this guy's standing in there getting his ribs shattered every other play and making big time throw after big time throw. And it's kind of unfortunate how this has worked out for the Jets, because the way he's played the last few games, you're definitely winning both those past games. I think you might win those Ravens and Bengals games at the beginning of the year too, because, like, unfortunately in this Bills game, and I think at times in the Vikings game, like, the support just has happened to not be quite as good as it was at times in previous games. In the Vikings game, he was protected well, but the separation was not great. He had to make a lot of contested throws. And this one, terrible pass protection. This is probably the worst offensive line performance of the season. And there's just not going to be a huge ceiling for your offense. And the numbers you could put up when your quarterback's getting hit that frequently, especially when you're playing in that weather against that defense, really no one was separating other than Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore. They really missed Corey Davis because we know Denzel Mims is not really a separator, and he missed some catchable passes he could have had. So
it's the 50-50 balls over the middle. It's those dig routes, those slants.
Right.
I mean, you saw it at the end of the game. They're throwing to Barrios in the red zone. It's like that. Those are Davis's plays. That's where they really missed him, and in the run game.
Yeah. So I mean, bottom line, and we'll see it more on the film when it comes out. But, like, when you're evaluating a quarterback, you just got to look at him and each play. What did he do versus what was presented to him? You can't look at the whole game and say, how many yards did he have? What was completion percentage and all that stuff that just lacks so much context. You have to, look at it play by play, who was open? How much pressure was there? How difficult was the throw he had to make? And you consider those factors and you evaluate him based on that. And the first 2 games, I think, when you look at him in that lens, he was, I would say, great in the Bears game, then good in the Vikings game. And then I think this was another good game. Like you said, there's a couple sacks where I really don't know why he didn't get rid of the ball. Other than that, and probably misfired on a couple throws I'm forgetting about, and we'll have to see the decision making once we see the all 22. But just for the second straight game, the big time throws. I mean, how many third and longs because of first down penalty, a first down stuffed run, second down stuffed run, and he's like making throws outside the numbers, just dropping it in along the sideline, tough throws over the middle. Again, oftentimes while being crushed while doing it. So I don't know how you can't be very impressed with what Mike White has done through 3 games. I think he's clearly earned the job for the remainder of this season, and this game is a big step forward for me in making his case for next year. There's still 4 games to go, so he has definitely not proven or clinched that yet, but I think he's adding to his case week by week. So it'll be interesting when it's all said and done, how he factors into the quarterback position next year and whether he can make a claim for that starting quarterback job. But with performances like this, I really think he's making a case for it. So yeah, I think Mike White in this game, throw out the numbers or the fact that they lost or the points on the board. Just look at him. What is he doing when considering the circumstances and focus on what he can control? I think this was another really solid game. He was the least of their problems in this game, I think.
Yeah, we might get some hate for asking this, but I think it's relevant. If Zach Wilson's the quarterback, how different does this game look in your eyes? I know it's
I think we
hypothetical.
saw that. I think we saw that in Week 18 last year, what it would look like.
Right.
I think that's a pretty good comparison.
I mean, well, he has a better supporting cast around him, so
Right.
it might have looked a little different. And you're right. Like he may have gone in and had as good of a game as White, if not better, but there are some throws in there. And especially you saw the plays where Mike White was taking those hits. Those are the exact
Yeah.
same plays where Zach Wilson's running 15 yards behind the line of
Right. Yeah.
scrimmage.
Yeah. I think that's the difference. I think on a lot of those throws Mike White made, Zach Wilson probably dodges it and then gets outside the pocket, but then he probably just throws it away. So I think, the Jets, even though the Jets had 10 points in this game, they didn't go 3 and out that often. They did have some drives going. They could just never sustain it long enough to get points out of it, which you obviously want to do, but still it could have been more disastrous. Like they did have some flashes, and I think if Zach Wilson played the way he has been playing this season, I think you probably would have seen something a lot closer to that New England game where there's just not even that, not even the signs of hope. So, yeah, like Mike White's ability to stand in the pocket and just make throws while accepting those hits is exactly what I want to see from Zach Wilson. I wanted Sam Darnold to be better at that, and they just never seem to be able to develop that part of their game. But Mike White really has that down. He's as tough as it gets, and he's willing to stand in there and take those hits if it means he could throw with proper mechanics and throw accurately. So it's been a huge ability these last couple of games.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say for White, and I tweeted this out, and I think some people didn't really get what I was saying, is he's got to add some weight in the offseason. And that doesn't mean that he, if he was 15 pounds heavier, he would have eaten that shot from Milano much better. He still probably exits the game, but because he's a pocket passer, because he's so tough, and he'll hang in there and he'll take those shots to deliver strikes over the middle. Unless he adds some weight to that 6'5" frame, I don't know how well he'll hold up. And you've already seen him go down in multiple games, multiple times where he's, a lot of it's the offensive line's fault. And I'm not saying this is to like blame Mike White. I'm just saying in terms of his viability as a long-term quarterback in this league, I think you've seen a lot to really like, a lot to say, oh, this is a guy that we could start next year. He could be your opening day quarterback, but with his style of play in today's NFL, if he's not a guy who can make a lot of guys miss, he did have one sack that he avoided that I thought was pretty cool, and then he ran right into another one. But
yeah,
he's got to add some weight to that frame. And then I think the other thing that's very clear is Zach Wilson should be QB2. I think that's pretty obvious because as up and down as he might be. Hey, you know what? Flacco did win us that Cleveland game, so I'm not going to go too hard.
It just makes it even more of a miracle.
I'll say this. Exactly. I'll say this for Flacco. I know he's not the oldest guy to ever play the quarterback position, but I've certainly never seen a guy look as old playing quarterback as Joe Flacco. I mean, those are some brutal series. So I think Zach Wilson should be quarterback too. And if White goes down again, then you get to inject Zach after 3+ weeks of sitting on the sideline and see what he's made of. But I think that gives him a much better chance to win. I think you can say that unequivocally, especially with all the injuries to the offensive line than Flacco at this point. I mean, when he was out there, I was like, oh, well, they're not winning at all, and then that moment where Mike White ran back onto the field, I think you could tell it sparked the team. And even just the way he was fighting through those hits. I mean, you wonder why Mike White seems to have all the respect of his teammates, not just because of his on the field play, but just, this is a guy obviously fighting for his career, but also just fighting for his teammates. And I think this was a really admirable performance for Mike White. And I know he already had the respect of I shouldn't say I know it, but it seems like he already had the respect of his teammates, and he certainly earned a little bit more with this performance. Let's run through some good. Okay. We're going to get to the bad. Let's run through some good though to take out of this game. Mike White, have to feel good about. Garrett Wilson, obviously he set the Jets franchise rookie receiving record, but absolute stud and a guy that you could see being a top 5 receiver and sooner rather than later in this league. Zonovan Knight also seemingly could be huge down the stretch because he's a damn good football player. The Jets are very lucky to have a guy like that, especially with how disappointing Michael Carter's been. Also shout out any other positives if you think of any. Bryce Huff, legit.
Yeah.
And we'll get to Carl Lawson in a second, but Bryce Huff needs to be playing more. I know he's great in the role, but I know he's great as a situational third down pass rusher, but he needs to be playing on all passing situations. He needs to be out there on 2nd and longs. He needs to be out there on some 1st and 10s. He is a damn good football player, and he wins his one-on-one more than he loses. And you can't say the same for Carl Lawson, who is a very good football player recovering from an extremely difficult injury to recover from. And it might take him, he might be even better next year that he's been 2 years removed from it. But as we were tweeting about and talking about this past week, it's a business. The Jets can free up $15 million by cutting or trading him. And barring a great last 4 weeks of the season / playoffs, he's not going to be a Jet next year because they got to pay a lot of guys, and including Huff. And so Carl Lawson got to step it up. We were doing the good things. Sorry. We're going to come back to Lawson. I thought Mosley, brutal penalty, but I thought he played a good game. I think he showed, especially in that last drive, to give the Jets a chance. He's the unequivocal veteran leader of this team and super smart player. But that penalty, inexcusable. But I'll still throw him in the positives. And then the Jets DBs, again, did a nice job with handling Stephon Diggs and this Bills passing offense. I thought Sauce Gardner had a great pass breakup. He had another play that goes unheralded, but I bet you will be highlighted by Brian Baldinger, or you'll see it. Somebody will post it at Jets X Factor, but I think it was right before that breakup. But did you see him when he ran across the field to stop that run play?
Yeah, it was a big play. Yeah.
So he had another good game. I think that might be it. I know Zerline hit like a 60-yarder in warmups, but I don't know if that counts to throw him into the good. Any other
could
positives?
Have been a great game for talking about a warm-up field goal.
Yeah, well, I was trying to think of anything. Any other positives?
I guess we could throw Elijah Moore in there. He had 6 catches for 60 yards.
Johnson blocked punt. Jermaine Johnson blocked punt.
Jermaine blocked punt. That was big.
Stepping in for Michael Clemens.
Yeah, I guess we could throw in those two.
Well, do you want to expand on any of those topics? Maybe Garrett Wilson, how impressive he is. I mean, there's not much else to say that we haven't already said, but
what else can you say? Just the separation was a lot of the catches he made were third and long. He had press coverage on him and was just able to shake it and get that separation. So even though he went 6 for 78 in this game, I feel like it is maybe further up on the effectiveness of his games, than just the 78 yards might say. And I love that 78 yards is kind of a low number for this guy. We've come a long way. That used to be like the crown jewel for a Jets rookie.
Yeah,
like that would be the one game you look back on as why he's going to be great. But nevertheless, I think they were high quality catches, even if they weren't the hugest chunks of yards. Bryce Huff, Quinnen kind of stole his 1 sack.
Did he not get a half on that?
Yeah, he didn't get a half sack on that. It went.
Right,
they gave a full to Quinnen. I don't know why. Maybe they'll change that because
I think it's because he got in at the
Huff
end.
Was grabbing onto his leg, so he should have got a half sack. But regardless, he created that. And then the next play, I'm pretty sure it was Huff who. It was a third and 2. I think Allen ran for a conversion. Someone got held and it called it back. I'm pretty sure it was Huff. So those were 2 big plays.
Bills were getting away with holding all game.
They were getting away with holding all game.
They're holding on for dear life against this defensive
line. They hit Garrett
line.
Wilson out of bounds.
And the Bills, I mean, they complained. I know there were some calls early that the Bills thought they should have gotten, but it's like, I mean, no fan base complains about the refs more than the Bills. I'm sorry. But every tweet I would see, it's like Bills versus the refs. It's like, or that's defensive PI on Sauce. It's like just they don't understand that face guarding is not a penalty in the NFL. So, yeah. I mean, that wasn't even close to pass interference in my eyes.
Yeah, and then with Sauce and Reed, I mean, quiet game, which you love. You look at the receiving numbers for Buffalo. Diggs goes 3 for 37. Davis goes 3 for 31. And that's fantastic when you're playing this team.
Do we put him in the graphic? Do we get a loss in the Sauce graphic this week, or are we too bummed out from the loss?
I feel like I kind of retired it by now. I haven't done it in a while. Maybe I should have been more active, but they're not winning. I feel like if they're not winning,
well, you can update
really
it.
Do it. But
next win, you can post it with the updated guys.
Yeah, that probably makes sense. Maybe I'll just do it at the end of the season. But
no, come on, it's good marketing for JetX. Come on now.
I've already kind of lost the momentum.
It's okay. It'll get retweets regardless.
That's true. I don't play for that though. But I guess we'll talk about the negatives now because there are quite a few.
Yeah, you can be my guest. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess let's start with one guy who's really frustrating me from the start, Braxton Berrios. What's gotten into this guy? I mean, on the punt returns, what were some of the decisions he was making?
Yeah.
I mean, that one that he decided not to field, he definitely should have fair caught.
There's more than
one. He let it bounce. There were multiple of those he should have fair caught, and he let it bounce to the goal line. But I think it was the first one where he was inches, maybe even less than that, away from touching that ball and giving it away to Buffalo for what probably would have been a touchdown. he was just not making good decisions on those. And I know it was windy and all that, but I didn't see Buffalo's guy struggling with it. Who's their guy? Hines. I
Isaiah
didn't see him
Okay.
struggling with. I didn't see him struggling with it. So those were bad. And then there was that pass, and he did catch the one wheel route or whatever it was. So give him credit for that. But there was that red zone play at the end where it looked like it hit him in the face and he didn't catch it.
Hit him right in the face mask.
Why are we targeting Barrios in the red zone again?
I don't know. They got to retire the red zone passing.
Just get him
package.
out off the field in the red zone. Like,
I know.
Okay.
Well, they can. I don't mind having him out there for those little jet sweeps, little trick plays, stuff like that. But he should not be the number one target on red zone in crunch time and back-to-back weeks. It just doesn't.
Right.
I mean, I just don't understand it, and it all goes back to losing Davis. Is really because I know it's not like a direct fill-in, but Davis is the guy on third down when they need like a big catch over the middle. That's the guy they go to, and they're showing that they don't really have a second option when he goes out because Mims hasn't proven that he can do that. You know, Garrett Wilson is fantastic, and he probably can, but he's the number one receiver. He's getting a lot of attention on those third downs. You need somebody else to step up. Moore has a smaller frame, but I guess he would probably be the guy I go to next. What you really need is one of these tight ends to step up in those situations. You know, that's what you really need. If Davis is going to go down, you need a tough catch over the middle, those 50-50 balls, or you're in the red zone. That's for the two tight ends you're paying, $8 to $10 million a year for. They should be making those plays, but I don't know if they have the confidence in either one of them, or they need to start giving them more opportunities. But yeah, the Barrios red zone package just got to be retired in terms of passing plays.
Carter, I think, is another negative. This is kind of just building upon what's been sort of accumulating for a few weeks now, to where Carter's kind of having
sophomore slump
at this point. Sophomore slump. Other than that first Bills game, I mean, what's his signature performance or his signature play this year? There really hasn't
Dolphins
been much
waddling in the end zone.
Even that was just
stealing Breece Hall's touchdowns.
Yeah, just stealing Breece Hall's touchdowns on the goal line. So just not the same elusiveness. I think, it was compared to Hall and now compared to Knight, it just seems like has significantly less burst, just hitting the hole and getting down the field. Killer fumble in this one was just heartbreaking because it really felt like they had something going. I mean, you blocked the punt, you got a drive going.
Oh, I wish they could have picked that punt up for a touchdown though.
Yeah,
I know I was hyped, but I was also
frustrating. It would have been great if that could be a touchdown.
Well, if they could punch in the touchdown, then you say, okay, you got 9 points instead of just 7. But what happened after the blocked punt? Did they just go 3 and out? Did they take a big sack? Is that what happened?
The Carter fumbles after the block punt, right?
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that was the ensuing drive. Yeah, it was.
Carter,
absolute killer. So, and look, he doesn't fumble that much, I guess. So that's not a recurring problem.
He's had a few though. I know he had one in preseason. I know it doesn't count, but still. And then didn't he have another one earlier in the year? Or I know. Never mind. That was Breece against the Ravens.
He had the drop in the end zone. That's
what he had. Yeah.
So some mistakes stockpiling for him, but also goes 5 carries for 5 yards. In the same game, Knight goes 17 for 71. So this has kind of been stacking up, and it happened in the, we just saw a couple of games ago. Ty Johnson was able to go off, and where's Carter's explosion? So it's been a disappointing season for him.
Yeah,
so.
You wonder how much that ankle's bothering him.
Yeah,
I mean that is the one thing about it's not like he was looking great early in the year either, but you don't really know what these guys are fighting through. He did have the ankle injury, comes back and plays this game. But yeah, I agree with you. He's looked disappointing. And also to the point where, I know James Robinson was inactive and he also wasn't like he was looking too hot, but he only really had 2 games with the Jets, fresh after getting traded to them. I thought he had obviously some good moments in that Bills game, did nothing in the Patriots game. He's a guy that at least in short yardage situations or in the red zone where the Jets have struggled that you can maybe turn to. So I might I'm not saying you deactivate Michael Carter, but maybe you try to get Robinson some of those touch. I mean, Knight is your RB1 for sure down the stretch. It seems like it was Knight and then Carter's the third down back, which is a duo that probably works. But, it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's too early for the James Robinson cries, but that fumble was absolutely brutal. There were some other sour notes to talk about. We can get into
talk about Flacco real quick. I mean, how does Flacco manage to blow an entire game with 5 plays? I mean, he comes in and misses wide open seam route to Conklin, wide open. misses that.
That up.
It's like I get
I
it.
haven't gone. If I'm being honest, I haven't gone back and watched this one. I was a little. Was it that
Yeah,
bad?
like I get it. You're off the bench and it's windy, whatever. But come on, like this is what your 80-year-old backup is supposed to be able to do. Just come in and be reliable. But he does that. Then the next time Mike White gets hurt, first play he comes in and fumbles it. I honestly forget exactly what that play looked like. Again, I haven't rewatched it either. It wasn't too enticing to want to rewatch. Let's be honest. I remember it being kind of bad though, but I'll have to look at it again. But either way, turns it over. First play coming back in. Next drive goes 3 and out. Just gross, absolutely gross. So I agree with you. I think it's time to let Zach have that backup job and put him in position to, if Mike White does get hurt, which he might if he continues to get smacked like this, then I think Zach should be that next man up because Flacco is just not giving you a thing. So I would push Zach into that spot.
No, I think wholeheartedly agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And hell, even Strevler might give you a better chance to win than Flacco.
Yeah, I mean that was ugly.
I like Flacco for what he brings to the film room, but maybe he's a coach next year. But he's not a quarterback anymore.
Using the roster spot to justify like the leadership and stuff like that, you got to be able to bring something to the table as a player. And I know he had the Cleveland comeback, but just this is really, he didn't have to do anything in this game, but just hand the ball off, hit one easy throw to Conklin, and just not be terrible for a few plays, and somehow he managed not to do that. So, but adding to the negatives, I think Michael Carter II was probably one of the top defensive culprits. He had a couple of big penalties. Seemed like he was whenever the Bills had some success, he was kind of at the heart of that. So rare down game for him. He's had a really good season. And then I think Davis to Mims was a big downgrade. I think we know Denzel Mims isn't much of a separator, and like we'll have to rewatch the film and confirm it. But there were definitely some situations where it seemed like White wanted to, where they had something downfield that they drew up on a longer distance situation, and he, checked the ball down. So we'll just see, maybe something was open and he was passing on those plays. But I think it seems more likely, just based on how reliable White has been with his reads, that just nothing was open. And I think you miss Corey Davis in those situations, and Mims probably wasn't doing a great job of separating. So they definitely missed him. And then I think penalties were a big one. A lot of early down penalties that killed drives, put you in first and long, and just made it hard for them to get out of that. Because I think there were, some stretches where they were running the ball pretty well. And, that was how they were getting some success, is getting ahead of the chains, being able to establish the run. But when you get into when they were getting into those, first and 20s, first and 15s, that's when they ran into some trouble. So penalties were a killer as well. So anything you want to add to the negatives?
Did you mention Michael Carter II?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was looking at our notes through here. I guess one of the other ones. I mean, it's tough. I know it's the annoying post game pod cliche. We have to watch the all-22, but the offensive line. I don't know who is going to be to blame for a lot of these big hits, but it was not pretty. And I don't know if it was Fant. I don't know if it was combination or miscommunication. There looked like a few times where the Bills just, I don't know, some of it could even be on Mike White sliding the protection one way. It looked like there were a few times where it's like, McGovern and Tomlinson might take out one guy, and then it looks like it was overloaded on the right side. And either that's just great play calling by the Bills, or that could be a mistake on the quarterback. But I think that the offensive line in general wasn't good enough to, I mean, they could have won it, but not what you were really hoping for. That's what we kind of said going into the game. What was some of the best case, worst case? What do the Jets need to do if they want to win this? You mentioned turnovers. That was obviously big. The Jets had a few of their own, and they weren't able to get force Buffalo to have any of their own. And then it was win in the trenches. And I think the Jets did that defensively, but the Bills' defensive line definitely also had a nice day against this Jets O-line. I thought there were some good plays for sure. Like there were definitely some plays where I thought they gave Mike White plenty of time, where they opened up some holes. But just too many of those free rusher right into Mike White's face, doesn't have time to do anything. And when you have a pocket passer, when you don't have a guy out there who's going to try to make every defender miss, which we were criticizing, not what you want. But when you have a pocket passer, you got to give him some time. You got to protect him a little better. But you got to go back. We got to go back and see exactly what it is. I do want to talk about the tight ends though, because I don't know if they get enough criticism, and I don't know if it's LaFleur or if it's the tight ends, but they got to get him more involved in this offense. Do you agree with me on that, or do you think I'm just finding a nitpicking here? But it just seems like Conklin was having a great offseason, and he's had some moments this season, but he's been underwhelming to me. And then Uzama, I actually think is in a lot of ways performed when he's been on the field. I know he's had some, like he didn't have a good block in this game and he's had some drops or whatever, but he's actually been one of the I think he only has had the one drop against Buffalo that popped up in the air and almost got intercepted. But, both of them have had their moments, but one of them has to take the reins, if the Jets are going to do something down the stretch here, because it just seems like it's too big a part of the offense when you're trying to run that 12 personnel look, those condensed splits. And, if you lose a guy like Davis and you don't have a tough physical receiver you're confident to throw to over the middle, it seems like it limits this offense. What did you make of Conklin and Uzama in this one?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that, especially in the red zone. I think there are a lot of better ways to use those Braxton Berrios touches, and I think getting the tight ends involved is one of those ways you could use it better. Because other than the first Patriots game, where Conklin had his 2 red zone touchdowns, it feels like the tight ends have been non-existent in the red zone completely. Yeah. So, I guess more red zone would be good to see from them. And just, more crossing routes for Uzama. That was something that I think is a good fit for him. Just try to get him with the head of steam, finding ways to get Uzama the ball in those spots where he could, just use his athleticism, like the route he had against the Vikings last week. That was a good dialed up play. So more stuff like that for him. And then getting Conklin, that was one weird thing in this game, because I want to see Conklin run some routes. And there was that one play where they had Uzama outside, and I think he ran a comeback and they threw it to him. That's totally not his game. Uzama's not a route runner. That's one thing he's not good at. Any sort of route that requires creating separation, he's not really too good at. He's more just like a dump off guy, or if you could get him on a screen or a crosser or something like that with natural separation, he can make plays, but he's not really a route runner. But I think Conklin can win on some of those routes, so not really sure why what they were thinking with that one. But I guess there are ways they could get the tight ends more involved.
What do you make of LaFleur's performance?
I think it's kind of hard to judge right now. We have to sort of watch it and see, you got
to give something.
What am I going to say here? Because
they're listening to the post game pod. You got to give. We watched the game. You could have some sort of. I know
we did watch the game, but
I know there's the qualifier.
Offensive coordinator is you can't see any of the stuff.
Okay, but you can draw some sort of conclusions from watching it.
That's because last year.
I know there's the qualification. You got to go back.
I think it was last week. I think it was easy for us to come on here and say he ran too many trick plays in the red zone. But this week, I don't really think there's that obvious thing that I'm not critical of. So I don't know. I don't really.
I can give you 2 off the top of my head. Okay, fine.
All right.
I'll give you 2 off the top of my head. I think one, you did see a few times where he schemed guys open. There's one early in the game where Elijah Moore did get open. I think it was on the first drive, actually, and White didn't hit him. So there was some good. I do think, and I even saw Dwayne Brown get frustrated, and I'm imagining it's about this. A lot of times on first down, the last 2 weeks, the Jets are going with little swing passes to the running backs or the receivers. Basically, instead of running it, they're trying to get the little quick pass game going. And, I don't actually hate that strategy. But in this game against this Bills defense, they had to run the ball a little bit more on those first downs. I know they had plenty of stuffed runs, but Zonovan Knight was running his tail off at other points in this game. And it's the little swing pass to Carter that is losing a yard, and then you're in 2nd 11, or best case scenario, they're getting 2 yards on. It's I would rather just run that outside zone offense, give that little stretch play to Zonovan Knight, and let him try to go get 3-4 yards, if not more. So I think that he gets away from the run a little bit too early on first downs, was what I would say. But again, okay, we got to go back and rewatch it. But on first watch, That was my takeaway. And there was one play where I literally thought that I was like, can we stop with these little first down swing passes instead of just running the ball? Because I know it's the same thought process of like, okay, let's just, get ahead of the chains here, not risking an incompletion. It's pretty much just a run. It's just passing to have a yards after the catch play. And I even saw Dwayne Brown at one point just do the, on the, it seems like the same reaction. It's just, you got a guy in Zonovan Knight, and this is a Bills defense you have to run the football against. And Tony Romo was talking about it the entire game, but they play similarly to the Jets. That shell style of defense, 2 safeties high. You're not going to beat them deep. They're going to limit the explosives, and you got to run. You got to set yourselves up in those second and shorts and third and shorts. And I don't know if LaFleur did as good of a job of staying ahead of the chains in this one, but I do think that he still. It's not like he had an awful game. Like, he schemed guys open. And I think he, did some nice stuff. I don't know if it's not really, this isn't LaFleur's call. This is more in Sala, and I forget his name. It's like whoever's their game coordinator, Smash or something. Dave, I forget his name.
I'll look it up. You this one.
Okay, whatever. But the decision to kick the field goal on 4th and 1 at the end of the game, I know that's not LaFleur, but questionable. It helped my parlay because I had the Jets plus the spread, but it did seem like their best chance of winning there was to go for it on 4th, try to get a touchdown on that drive. They did get the ball back. And you think about that last drive, if they had the ball back there and it's like, hey, we just need to get to the 40-yard line, just try to get into Zerline's range. It seems like maybe they could have, well, obviously they didn't get a first down, so maybe they wouldn't have done anything, but it seems like that would have been a better situation to be in than, hey, you got to go drive 80 yards and get 8 points at the end of the game. It just didn't seem like that was the smart call there. But that's not really LaFleur. But anyways, anything to make on what I said about LaFleur and not doing a good enough job of setting the Jets up in those second and third and short situations, and then the decision at the end of the game to go or to kick the field goal.
No, I mean, I guess what I'm going to go with for LaFleur right now is that I think he was okay. I think this had more to do with bad blocking and separation than play calling. Not to say he's completely absolved, but I think it was. I don't know if this was one of the games where I think he wasn't that good, because like last week we said, or I said, I think you look at the Jets' production and a lot of that was just really good execution. Like, Mike White making big throws, Garrett Wilson big yak, Zonovan Knight breakout run, more so than it was consistent good scheming. Although there was good scheming, you don't get 486 yards without it. But I think that was what I went with the last game. This one, I don't know. We'll have to see more. But as of right now, watching it the first time, I was like, there's some chances here. It just isn't being blocked well. So I'll go with that. And then the 4th and 1, I agree. I think the right move is probably to go for it, because I get the thought process of, if we go for it, we don't get it, the game's over. So let's just take the field goal and keep ourselves alive. But like, you have to get the 2 scores. You have to get a touchdown at some point. So your choices for getting that touchdown are, let's try to get it right now when we've just 1 yard to go. They're going to give it to us for free because there's no way they're going to risk you scoring on that play. So it's basically a free yard. You got a few yards to go to score the touchdown. And then when you get the ball back later, it subtracts like 40 yards that you have to get to the point where you need, because like you said, you get the ball back and you just need a field goal. So knowing Greg the Leg, and it was tough conditions, but he's kicked through that this season. You probably have to get to like the 40. So that's, 40 less yards you have to get to. Changes the whole way the defense plays it. Because maybe they play for the field goal range, then you could take shots. It opens up a lot more. So that's kind of the conservative play. The more, I guess, old school minded play, like, all right, let's get the field goal. Let's keep ourselves alive here. But you're a few yards away from the touchdown that you have to get at some point. You got to try to go get it right now, and then make it easier for yourself when you ideally get it back later. So I don't think that was the right play, but it definitely didn't lose them the game.
Okay, I know what your answer is going to be. Offensive line. Was there anybody that stood out to you on first watch? In a good or bad way, and I know we may have a vested interest here because we have a scheduled interview this week. We'll see if it still happens, but
I mean, I don't know. I feel like this might have been one of those games where it was a lot of communication stuff, more so than it was like someone was getting beat clearly a lot, or at least multiple people. But it was definitely one of those where it was like there were a lot of free rushers coming in, and it's more so than one-on-one losses. It's like, all right, why are we not picking these guys up? Why are their linebackers running free through the A gap with a full head of steam? So it felt like one of those kind of games more so than getting manhandled, but it was definitely a little bit of both. To be completely honest, I wasn't totally paying attention to the individual O linemen to really see who was getting destroyed.
The pickle pants were distracting you?
It was very, very distracting. Distracting in a good way, just because I love them so much. That's how good they were.
Gross. But do you think that's the reason they lost?
No, I mean, the black pants kind of wore off with the last two games.
They could have gone all white. It wasn't a terrible look. All right, it's too early for the uniform.
I think it was okay. All right, yeah, too early for that. But.
Probably too early. It wasn't such a bad look. Again, this is my thesis on uniforms. If you win, they look great, and if you lose, they look terrible.
It definitely affects it, because I remember when they were 5-0 in the white on blacks or whatever it was. I remember making a uniform ranking and putting that number one, and then after they lost a couple games, I started looking at them and I'm like, wait, why did I think this was the best one? That's clearly not the best one. So it definitely has that bias, success bias.
Do you want to talk about Carl Lawson?
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting topic right now. I feel like in this game it was really visible how many opportunities he was getting, just one-on-one against Deion Dawkins. It was a really good tackle, but I mean, Lawson's paid to be a really good edge rusher, and it's just, I don't know what it is with him, because it's easy to use that excuse of like he's still trying to get back from the injury. Maybe he's not 100%, but he looks explosive. He gets off the line good. I think he's still second in the average get off time in terms of how quickly he crosses the line of scrimmage. He gets good push, but it's like, I feel like all he ever does is just bull rush guys. He doesn't really he's not chaining moves. He can't get off the block. Like, there were multiple times in this game where he just pushes his guy past the quarterback and kind of gets stuck and can't really get off of the block. So I don't know. I felt like in 2020 with the Bengals, when we were watching some of his film and seeing what he would bring to the Jets, it was like, all right, he's got some inside spin moves. He's got some arm over, some swim moves that he'll use sometimes. He had different moves in his toolbox. He had a did I say he had a spin move? But
yeah,
either way. I think the spin is something he used a lot. He had sort of like an outside jab step, and he would come back inside. And then, like I said, he had sort of a swim move as well. So there were some moves in his toolbox, but now I feel like all it is just bull rush, bull rush, bull rush. I don't really see him throwing any moves, and you need to have those moves to get off the block and actually make plays like Bryce Huff does. I mean, he's been so good at just, not only getting off the line quickly, but it's like he's able to defeat the guy's hands so he could get through him and actually make a play in the quarterback. Whereas Lawson, I feel like, he's not getting destroyed. It's not like he's getting locked up and held at the line of scrimmage. Like, he gets deep into the backfield, but he doesn't turn it into anything. So, at this point, I'm pretty disappointed with him this season. And that's not to say he's bad. I guess he's been solid. But, that's not what he's being paid to be, and it's not what he showed he was capable of in his last season with the Bengals. So, looking at his contract going forward, I mean, and the pipeline the Jets have, I think we are heading towards a scenario where the Jets probably cut ties with him and allow Bryce Huff and Jermaine Johnson to take the reins over there. But that's a conversation for another day. Let's just hope over these next 4 games that Carl Lawson could start putting it together a little more consistently.
Yeah, we talked about it the last 2 weeks, how he's throughout his entire career had great ends to seasons.
Yeah.
He's a great December player. Even last week, he had the sack, and he makes those pressures. It just seems like he's not like disengaging with blocks. A lot of times he gets run up the arc. You compared him to, he's just kind of like a big bulldozer. Like, he just kind of comes in, wrecking ball as far as the better way to put it.
Yeah.
Just a big wrecking ball comes through, maybe gets some push, but he's not disengaging with the block. He's not chaining any moves together. He's leaving wide open lanes for the quarterback to run up into. Yeah, he's a good player. It's not like he's a bad football player. This isn't a Kenny Golladay situation. It's just $15 million, a position the Jets have a pipeline at, and a position the Jets will probably keep adding to. Who's to say the Jets won't draft another edge or defensive lineman in day 1 or day 2 next year if they let Carl Lawson go. And it's just $15 million for that. They can free it up with the trade or cutting him. I don't see him next year unless he really goes off towards the end of the season. Corey Davis, on the other hand, similar situation where, if they cut him, they can free up $10 million. So that's $25 million between the both of them. I just don't see the Jets keeping both of them. I think somebody's got to go, maybe even both. But Davis at $10 million for what he brings you and how important he is to this offense, you could stomach a $10 million contract. And also, I think somebody would even trade for Davis at $10 million. If you look at the money that receivers get around the league, that's not an overpay. Yeah, maybe he could, another production because he's been injured and the quarterback play hasn't been great isn't really there, but he's been a damn good receiver for this team this year. He's worth that $10 million in my eyes. But I could still understand the Jets moving on from him and drafting another guy to try to do those things that he brings. But Davis at $10 million is easier to stomach than Lawson at 15, the way that he's playing. And they're both good players. But yeah, anyway, as you said, that's a conversation for another day. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, Quinnen, not too much to say. Looked great. Looked dominant. Goes down. I had a bad feeling entering this one I was like, I just have a feeling the Jets are going to lose somebody in this one. Fortunately, say it's a calf injury. And sometimes when they say calf, that means Achilles, but they don't want to say Achilles yet.
We know how injuries go with the Jets.
Right.
10 days becomes 10 months. Becomes 10 years.
But I will say, even the fact that they said that there's hope for him to play next week means that it is a calf. Right. I mean, again, knock on wood, we'll see what everything says. We'll see what Saul says tomorrow, but it seems like it is a calf. It's not an ACL. It's not anything with the knee. So even if it's a calf strain and he misses the next 2 games and he doesn't come back until Seattle or, the next week or whatever, it's like, it does seem like the Jets aren't going to lose him for the year, which if they lost him for the year, I don't know how deep of a playoff run this team makes if they even make the playoffs. He is a defensive player.
You can see it in this game. You can see in this game when he went out. I mean, overall defense did a good job, but I mean, most of that effort is the first 29 minutes or whatever it was. But he goes out and just you can see it's a lot softer to get through that middle of the defense.
Well, and that's also when talking about Carl Lawson making 15. That's why you're paying Carl Lawson those $15 million a year. It's because it's to finish those sacks. It's like Quinnen Williams has been that guy. He's been the finisher for them, which is kind of rare for an interior defensive line. Normally, it's the interior defensive lineman who's the pressure maker, and then the edge guy gets all those sacks. But Quinnen has been, he's gotten some cleanup sacks, but he's also he's so powerful, and he just pushes the pile and he finishes sacks. And when they lost that, they were still creating the push up front, but they didn't have that guy to finish. And it wasn't Carl. JFM, I think, has had a good year, and I think he'll be here next year. Not to get too far, I did a lot of contract research this week. I think he'll be here next year, but I think JFM gets traded the year after that. But regardless, again, another conversation for a different day. But they
different year.
For a different year, exactly. I don't think Quinnen. Yeah, also way too early to say. If JFM goes off the next year, then probably not. But I don't think that Quinnen going out sunk them as much as I thought it would. Like they still did get pushed. They still were okay in the run game. They still did get some sacks. Sheldon Rankins filled in okay. And, I like Tanzel Smart. I don't think he played in this one, but they have him. But he's just so damn good. And losing him, the fact that it seems like he's going to be okay or that he should return this season makes this loss easier to stomach, which I think is, again, the third time I've said that this month. But
if that was a serious injury, I mean, I wouldn't be coming on here with all the optimism.
I don't think he'd be coming on here at midnight to do this pod. Yeah, I mean, I'd be pretty bummed about that. But it seems like White and Quinnen should be okay. And if that's the case, it's like, all right, the Jets have a quarterback. They yet again show they can beat anybody in the league. I do believe the Jets can go into Buffalo in January and beat the Bills. I think you saw that in this game. But it is also hard not to feel like, the Jets have blown some games this year that they definitely should have or could have won. They've won some games. Happens every year where you win some you should win or shouldn't win, and then you lose some you should win. But it's getting to the point where the Jets have lost more games that they should have won than have won more games that they should have lost. It's like the Cleveland game was definitely a miracle.
Yeah.
You could argue the Steelers game was a bit of I don't even want to call it a gift. It was a well-earned comeback. Outside of that, though, it's like those Patriots games and the Vikings game and this game, all games where you feel like the Jets had their opportunities to win the game and they let it slip through their fingers. So that part is tough to stomach for sure. But, playoffs start this week. If they were going to make a run, it starts now. They got to win these games. The task is still in front of them. In a way, they still control their own destiny. I don't see them. If they win out, they're making the playoffs. And even if they win 3 of the 4, I think they have a good shot at making the playoffs, or at least having that opportunity at the last week of the season. So, this is what we wanted. So these 2 games were losses, so it's hard to be like happy after them. But they were also, you didn't want to see the Jets go out there and get blown out, and they didn't do that. Not that the bar should be that low, but just, I don't know. They've proven they can beat anybody. It's just now it's gotten to the point where it's like they have to take care of business. They have no more losses, that dispensable losses. They have to beat the Lions.
Yeah, that's
they
a good
have
way
to
to
beat the
put it.
Jaguars.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. They kind of used up the dispensable losses, which you would have liked to have some of those going down the stretch here, because it's the NFL and you could lose any game. But I think the way you put it at the top of this podcast is the best way to put it. I think if you're a playoff team, then you should sweep 2 home games against teams with losing records. I don't care how they're playing recently. If you're going to the playoffs, you win those 2 games in a 5-day span and you turn your season around. And then you go to Seattle and you beat a team, win at a stadium that the Panthers and Raiders were just able to win at. So, I think if you're a playoff team, regardless of the tough losses recently, I think you still have everything right in front of you. So, I think this is a good time maybe to talk about some of the playoff scenarios, some of the things that have played out. So
go ahead. Let's set the scene. Let's set the scene, Michael.
Set the scene. Let's set it up.
Let's see if we can make this slightly more interesting than the last time. I'll try to
It's very
engage it. Yeah. Okay.
So obviously the Chargers-Dolphins game is the big thing for the Jets this week, or this Sunday. Patriots game is obviously huge tonight. But I was rooting for the Dolphins to win that. I think most of us were and should have been, because I think that would have been the preferable outcome, because the Chargers are the team on your tail and you would like to still have that possession of that spot and control of your own destiny right now. And, just have that cushion to where, if we fall on our face, then the team behind us, they're still behind us. So I think that cushion is important. But now the Chargers get that win. Right now they have a half-game advantage in the conference record, so they have the tiebreaker over the Jets as of right now. And it's also worrisome because the Chargers have a soft schedule to finish this season. Home against the Titans, who do not look good recently. Then at the Colts, home against the Rams, at the Broncos. Very winnable stretch
Baker
of games
Mayfield,
here.
come on, like Derrick Henry. There's maybe there's some upsets there. Chargers aren't. I know what you're saying, but they can lose some of these games.
Yeah, the silver lining. Jeff Saturday magic. We're gonna have to hope for it. But the silver lining is that the Dolphins now are dragged into this wild card mix, because now they're playing Buffalo on Saturday. And if they lose, I know we just brought up Jeff Saturday. Now I'm bringing up Saturday. So some Saturday magic is what we're going to need in 2 different ways. Boo. That was deserving. But yeah, if the Dolphins lose on Saturday to the Bills.
It's 12:30 in your defense.
Yeah,
it's actually 1.
We set the scene, and I'm totally botching this play. The tomatoes are coming on the stage at this point. But so the Dolphins lose to the Bills on Saturday. Now you're looking at them at 8-6, and so if the Jets can win on Sunday, then you tie the Dolphins and you have that tiebreaker, and you can pass them. So that's a silver lining. I would have preferred the Chargers to lose that game, but now the Dolphins are in this mix here. So basically, if you could stay within 1 game of the Dolphins going into Week 18, you got a shot to get in. That's as long as both the Patriots and the Chargers don't pass the Jets and Dolphins by that point, which I don't anticipate that happening, but it could. But as long as the Jets stay within a game of the Dolphins now, going into Week 18, they're going to have a shot if they can win that game. And the way the Dolphins look recently, Jets can absolutely do that, especially considering how they played.
Jets are a damn good team.
Game.
Like it's not like the thing that these last two losses have at least proven to me is the Jets are for real. They're a damn good team, and they definitely should go out there and take care of business against the Lions, Jags, and Seahawks. I don't have the same level of fear as maybe I would with some other more mediocre Jets teams that have head into. There honestly there haven't been many as of late, but that would head into the end of the season. It's like, okay, maybe if they can sneak this out, they can make a playoff run. It's like this is a team that the Chiefs should be scared about in January. This is a team that the Bills should be scared about in January. Like they can play with anybody. It's just, these last two games the ball didn't go their way and they didn't capitalize on their opportunities. But it's like the way that Mike White has played these last few weeks and the type of defense that they have and the playmakers that they have, specifically Garrett Wilson, and now you could say Bam Knight, this is a damn good football team. Yeah. This is a team that deserves to be in the playoffs. And it's like, if it's meant to happen, it'll happen because they have 3 winnable games right on their plate, right in front of them. And they just take care of business. At the very least, they'll enter that Miami game with a win and in shot. If not already, could clinch it on other scenarios. So it's like, just take care of business. I don't know. I'm not as, if they lose one of these other ones, I'll come crashing back down to earth with my negative Jets takes. But it's like, the mission's still the mission. Job's right in front of them.
Yeah, I think that 5-day stretch next week is going to tell us a lot. If you could wake up on Friday, Christmas Eve, and the Jets are 9-6, I think you feel really good about how this is all going to pan out. But if they're 8-7 at that point, 7-8 speaks for itself. We don't even have to discuss what that would mean. But if you're 8-7, like you lost one of these 2 games, whether that's you lose to the Lions and then you rebound to Jaguars, or vice versa. 8-7's a tough spot to be in if you wake up on Friday. Probably not having to sweep those 2 games, despite having lost a home game to one of these 2 teams, that's not a good spot. But if you could turn the whole thing around in that 5-day span there, 2 home games, 2 teams you're better than, I think you wake up on Friday, go into Christmas Eve feeling really good about yourself. So they got a chance here to turn around. Like you said, if it's meant to be for this team, for them to be a playoff team, even if that's not a playoff team that makes a huge run, but just a playoff team, regardless, I think the stage is still set for them to do it.
All right. I guess we can wrap it up there. It is 1:15 in the morning. You can follow us at CYJ Pod on Twitter, Michael_Nania, my personal Ben W. Blessington. Go to jetsxfactor.com, best place to go for Jets content. Please rate, review, subscribe on iTunes for this podcast. Subscribe to the Jets X Factor YouTube. We're on the video. We're up in the production quality in this podcast. We're going to try to get Michael a better lighting system, though. You looked like you were on the sun in the last episode. I think that's it. Any last thoughts, Michael?
White on green was pretty good. Don't have to overanalyze it. If you just separate it from the result, which I think we got to try to do a better job of.
What do you think they go with next week? Go on. I'm going green.
I think it'll be green on green.
I'm going green on green.
Yeah.
White Sox, green Sox. These are the important topics. This is why they come here. This is what the listeners want.
Green. I think green. I think they're prepping us. You think so?
Yeah.
I think they're prepping us for it with this game.
Well, the doors have been open now that they're wearing the pickle pants. They can truly go with any combo now.
I think that's what they were doing with this game. They wanted to just get your eyes ready,
right,
for what's about to come.
We are still a green team, believe it or not. All right, let's get out of here, Michael. Thank you everybody for listening. Hopefully the Jets didn't ruin your weekend. They should.
Quickly, they are 2-0 with green on green with Green Sox, right? Steelers, Browns in 2020.
Steelers
Those
were
are
White
the 2
Sox.
games, right? Oh, Steelers was White Sox.
It was Browns and Saints.
Right. Forgot the Saints
1-1.
game. So never mind. Have they worn any other White Sox with green on green other than Steelers?
The Greg Williams 0 blitz game. The Buccaneers
that was a
game.
win, though.
Yeah, that was honestly that was a win. The Buccaneers game last year. There's definitely some other ones.
That's true. I guess their best uniform.
The Seeing Ghost game. That super great, memorable green on green game.
Yeah, I think all black is still their best record.
Yeah,
for a uniform.
Definitely.
Well, white on black is the best. Other than that, Black pants, that's the key.
Yeah, we need our lucky pants. All right. Thank you everybody for listening. Have a great weekend. We'll be back. We'll see. We have an interview scheduled with George Fant for Tuesday, so that interview should be coming Wednesday, but never know. Regardless, we'll have a preview pod coming out on Friday talking about the Lions game. What a big podcast that'll be. Very excited about that one. Michael, thanks for coming on here at 1 a.m. Everybody, thanks for listening. Have a great week. Go Jets.